The twin suns of Valari burned low on the horizon, bleeding crimson light over the labor pits. Metal dust hung in the air like poison, coating everything: skin, breath, and hope. Among thousands of bent backs and tired eyes, one figure moved slower, quieter, different. Human. His name was Elias Ward. He had been captured 2 years ago when his freighter strayed too close to Valari territory. Sold at auction to the Drac overseers, branded and collared. To them, humans were weak curiosities, fragile, emotional, short-lived. To Elias, the Drac were a plague, tall, gray-skinned merchants who bought and broke anything that breathed. Every day he lifted alloy rods heavier than his own body, stacking them until his fingers bled. Every night he whispered the same words under his breath. Humans don't break. We adapt. The Drac never understood that. One evening, a convoy of sleek black skimmers rolled into the yard. From the lead craft stepped someone who didn't belong. A woman, if that word could describe her. Her skin shimmered like silver glass. Her eyes glowed faint blue under the fading suns. The overseers bowed low. Lady Seraph of House Vera, one hissed. Elias froze mid-motion. She was beautiful, but in a way that made the whole world feel wrong, too still. The workers watched as she walked past them, her robes trailing like liquid light. Then her gaze fell on him. For a moment she did nothing. Then she spoke, her voice soft yet unmistakably commanding. That one. The human. He works alone. The overseer nodded. A defective specimen, my lady. Slow to obey, but durable. She looked back at Elias again. I will take him. The yard fell silent. No one argued with a noble widow of House Vera. The overseers removed his collar and replaced it with a slender band that glowed faintly blue. Ownership transferred. Just like that. Inside her skimmer, Elias kept his eyes on the floor. He expected whips, orders, chains. Instead, she handed him a water vial. Clean, cold, real water. Drink. His hands shook as he took it. He hadn't tasted fresh water in months. Why me? He asked quietly. Seraph turned to the window, watching the mines fade behind them. Because you look back at me, she said. No one ever does. The ride continued in silence. Elias studied her reflection on the glass. There was a sadness there, old and deep. Rumors said House Vera's widow had lost her mate in the rebellion. Now she lived alone in a fortress at the edge of the storm sea. He wondered why a woman of power would buy a broken human. The skimmer landed on a platform carved into black cliffs. Wind howled like angry ghosts. Her home stood like a temple of glass and steel. No guards. No servants. Only the sound of distant waves. She led him inside. You will work here, she said. Keep the gardens alive. They are the last thing my husband left me. He nodded slowly. Earth plants grew here. Roses, ferns, small olive trees in silver pots. He could smell soil. Real soil. He almost forgot how it smelled. Days passed. She rarely spoke, but sometimes he felt her eyes on him as he worked. He began to see cracks in her armor. Moments when she touched the plants with a trembling hand or stared at earth paintings hung in her hall. She was a widow who missed beauty, and he was a slave who refused to die. One night, the storms outside raged, and the lights flickered. Elias heard her voice through the door, whispering to herself. Why does he remind me of them, of humans who fought so hard to survive? He pretended to sleep, but his heart was racing. For the first time since his capture, Elias felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky of Valari. Inside, a human and an alien widow shared a silence heavy with secrets, the beginning of something that would change them both forever. The first dawn in House Vera came wrapped in silence. No guard shouting. No metallic whips cracking. Only the whisper of the sea below the cliffs and the hum of alien birds that glowed faintly blue in the mist. Elias woke before sunrise, the way every slave did, his body trained to survive. He waited for orders that never came. Instead, he found a note left on the small table near his cot. Water the garden. Speak only if spoken to. Do not fear the storms. It was written in her hand, graceful, deliberate, almost human. He stepped into the courtyard. The garden shimmered under the violet sky. Rain from the night storms still clung to the leaves, each drop glowing faintly with bioluminescence. He touched the soil, soft, rich, alive. He hadn't felt life like this since Earth. While he worked, he noticed something strange. Every plant here was from Earth. Roses, lilies, Wheatgrass. Even a small tree bearing tiny, green apples. Someone had gone through trouble, or pain, to bring them here. Behind him, the door slid open. Lady Seraph stood at the threshold, wearing a simple cloak. No crown. No guards. Just her, quiet, watchful. You know these plants, she said softly. Elias nodded. My mother had a garden like this. Before the wars. Her expression shifted. Before the wars, she repeated, almost tasting the words. Humans build beauty, even after destroying so much of it. She stepped closer, her silver skin catching the morning light. Do you hate us, human? The question hit him harder than any blow. He hesitated. I hate cages, he said finally. Not the ones who open them. A faint smile touched her lips, the first he had ever seen. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the widow and the slave, listening to the distant sea crash against the cliffs. That afternoon, Elias worked in the garden while she watched from the balcony. He noticed her gaze linger not with command, but with curiosity. She seemed to study how his hands moved, how gently he treated every flower. Later, he found her in the observatory, sitting by a wide glass window facing the storms. Lightning carved white veins across the dark sky. She spoke without looking at him. When my husband died, they tried to take this house. Said I was unfit. Said I'd gone soft. Her voice trembled, but only slightly. I kept this place because I remembered what he loved most, the things that grew. Elias didn't know what to say. Instead, he stepped closer and looked at the paintings on the wall. They were all of Earth. Mountains, oceans, forests. He realized then that her husband must have loved humans. Or perhaps envied them. He believed your kind had something we lost long ago, she continued. Emotion, chaos, passion. She turned her gaze on him. Do you? He met her eyes. We do. It's what keeps us alive. For a second, something unspoken passed between them. Respect, recognition, maybe the first thread of trust. But that night, when he returned to his quarters, the illusion of peace shattered. A small drone hovered by his window, black, marked with the sigil of House Drac. A spy, watching him, watching her. He grabbed a spade and smashed it from the air. Sparks burst in the dark. Within minutes, alarms whispered through the hallways, soft, almost polite, but urgent. Lady Seraph appeared, cloak half-tied, her expression unreadable. What did you destroy? A drone, Elias answered. Dracmake. It was watching. She froze. They still follow me, she murmured. Even here. She looked at him then, truly looked, seeing not a slave, but someone who had acted without fear. You shouldn't have done that, she said. Then fire me, he replied. Her lips twitched, part scold, part smile. No, she said quietly. You remind me of who I used to be. That night, while the storms howled outside, Elias lay awake. He realized something terrifying and wonderful. For the first time since his capture, he wasn't dreaming of escape. He was thinking about her. The storms lasted for 3 nights. Wind screamed against the fortress walls, rain slicing like shards of molten glass. Elias worked through it all, repairing the hydro pumps and shielding the gardens from flooding. He'd learned to read the rhythm of Valari weather, wild, alive, unpredictable, much like the woman who owned the sky above it. Lady Seraph watched him from the high terrace, her cloak whipping in the wind. He didn't look like a slave anymore. He moved like someone with purpose, and that unsettled her. She had bought him to silence her guilt, to keep something alive when her world felt dead. But now, she was the one feeling alive again, and that scared her more than any rebellion. On the 4th morning, when the skies finally cleared, she summoned him to the glass hall. It was a massive chamber built entirely from mirrored crystal, reflecting light into infinite shapes. At its center stood a memorial, a sculpture of her late husband, Lord Kael Vera. Beneath it, an inscription carved in both Valari and Terran script read, "Life must reach beyond its design." Elias stared at the words. He knew English? Seraph nodded slowly. He studied your people. He believed humans were the next step in evolution, not because of power, but because of defiance. She looked at the statue's cold, perfect face. He said humans fight for meaning, even when the universe offers none. Elias ran a hand over the letters. The words hit deep. He'd spent years surviving without purpose. Maybe this place, this strange alien house, was the first time he'd started fighting for something again. Suddenly, The doors of the hall burst open. Two tall Drac officers stepped inside, their armor gleaming black and gold. Their voices were sharp, arrogant. "Lady Seraph," one said, bowing slightly. "The council grows concerned. You are harboring unauthorized biological assets." Elias stiffened. The other officer's eyes flicked toward him. A human. Dangerous. Prone to rebellion. Seraph's gaze hardened. "This man is under my protection," she said. "Then your protection is illegal," the officer replied. "The Drac Syndicate forbids ownership of human specimens outside mining labor." Elias said nothing, but his hand curled into a fist. He could feel the heat rising behind his eyes, the same fury that had once kept him alive in the pits. Seraph's voice dropped lower. "You will not threaten my house." "Your house?" the officer sneered. "Without your husband, it's a relic waiting to fall." Before Elias could think, he stepped forward. "Say that again." The officer turned, amused. "The pet speaks." "Say it again," Elias repeated. His tone was calm, but his eyes burned. In a single motion, the officer raised his plasma staff, but Seraph's voice cut through the air like thunder. "Enough!" The walls vibrated with the power of her tone. Her aura flared, blue and blinding. The officers froze. Even Elias felt his breath catch. "Leave my home," she said. The Drac hesitated, then bowed reluctantly and turned away, the doors hissing shut behind them. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The storm outside had quieted, but another kind of storm brewed between them. Finally, Seraph exhaled. "You shouldn't have spoken," she said softly. "Maybe not," Elias replied. "But someone had to." Her eyes met his. "You're reckless." He smiled faintly. "You knew that when you bought me." She almost laughed, almost. But instead, she walked to the statue and pressed her hand against its base. A panel opened, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a small, black cube, humming faintly with inner light. "What is that?" Elias asked. "The reason the Drac fear me," she said. "And the reason they will come again." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "My husband built this. A seed. A memory core. It holds everything he learned about humans, their biology, their spirit, their soul." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "If the Drac get it, humanity will be nothing more than a pattern they can copy and control." Elias stared at the cube, then at her. "Then we can't let them have it." "We?" she asked. "You bought me," he said. "Now you're stuck with me." For the first time, Lady Seraph didn't correct him. She just looked at him, not as a slave, not as a curiosity, but as something dangerously close to equal. Outside, the sea began to rise again. Inside, two souls, one human, one alien, were about to decide the fate of both worlds. The fortress burned under a fractured sky. Drac ships circled like vultures, firing plasma bolts into the storm. Each blast cracked the shield, each tremor shook the mountain beneath. And in the middle of the chaos, the cube pulsed with blinding white light. Elias stood before it, feeling every heartbeat sync with its hum. His veins glowed faintly, threads of light tracing across his arms. It didn't hurt. It felt alive. Seraph staggered closer, clutching her wounded arm. "It's linking with you," she gasped. "It's reading your neural field." "Can I shut it off?" "No," she said, breathless. "It doesn't want to be shut off." The cube's voice echoed again, deep and resonant. Human pattern accepted. Memory merge commencing. Images flooded Elias's mind. A planet seen from orbit. Cities of glass and steel. And a man, tall, noble, standing beside Seraph, holding her hand. Lord Kale Vera. He saw Kale working in a laboratory, recording a message. "If humanity falls, we fall with them. They are the flame we forgot to protect." Then the vision shifted, Drac soldiers bursting into the lab. Kale shouted something, pressed the cube into Seraph's hands. "Run! Save them!" A flash of light, and then silence. Elias fell to his knees, gasping. When the vision faded, he looked at her with new understanding. "They killed him." Seraph nodded slowly, tears streaking her silver cheeks. "He tried to make peace. The council called it treason. They murdered him for believing in your kind." Her voice broke. "I couldn't save him, but I could save his dream." The cube pulsed again, brighter now. Elias touched its surface. "Then we save it together." Outside, the Drac fleet regrouped. Their leader's voice boomed through the storm, amplified by sonic arrays. "House Vera, Surrender the human and the device. Defiance will mean extinction. Seraph glanced at Elias. If we give them this, they'll erase humanity's memory forever. He looked toward the storm. Then they'll have to erase me first. He walked to the balcony. The wind tore at his hair and clothes. He raised his hand, and the cube responded, hovering beside him. Energy arced between them like living lightning. The fusion of human instinct and alien design. He aimed toward the fleet. The air thickened. A beam of pure light shot upward, slicing through the storm. The nearest Drac skimmer exploded in a fiery spiral. Seraph shielded her face from the blast. Elias, she shouted. You'll kill yourself. He grinned, wild and fierce. Maybe, but at least I'll die free. Another blast roared from the sky, this one larger. The shield trembled, threatening to collapse. Seraph ran to the console, fingers flying across glowing keys. I can divert the power grid to reinforce you, but it'll drain everything. Do it, he yelled. The fortress lights dimmed, plunging the halls into darkness. All that remained was the glow of the cube and Elias's heartbeat. For a moment, everything went still. Then the cube spoke once more, its tone softer, almost human. He believed in your defiance. Show them why. Elias raised both hands. This time, the energy didn't blast outward. It rippled, expanding across the sea, the air, the storm itself. The wind obeyed him. The lightning bent. The cube was amplifying human will. The fleet above wavered. Their targeting systems failed. Their pilots screamed as gravity itself twisted around the fortress. In seconds, 3 Drac ships fell from the sky, crashing into the sea below. Explosions painted the horizon gold. Seraph stumbled beside him, her voice trembling. What are you becoming? He turned to her, eyes glowing faint blue like hers. Something they should have never underestimated. The storm began to calm, but the fortress was falling apart, walls cracking, power fading. Seraph reached for him. We have to go? The cliffs won't hold. He shook his head. Not yet. They're not all gone. From the remaining ships, hundreds of Drac drones poured out like a swarm of metal locusts. The final wave. Elias's weapon sputtered, overheated, dying. Seraph grabbed his arm. There's one last defense system, deep in the core. My husband built it to protect the cube. What kind of system? She hesitated. A fusion pulse. It'll destroy everything within 100 miles. He stared at her. You mean us too? She nodded. Better to burn the sky than let them rewrite humanity. The cube pulsed again, brighter, almost mournful. Elias looked at it, then at her. We'll find another way. She smiled faintly. You sound like him. Outside, the Drac swarm descended. The fortress shook to its foundations. And somewhere deep below, the pulse engine began to awaken. The night sky burned with streaks of gold lightning. From the horizon, dark silhouettes approached, Drac War skimmers slicing through the storm. The hum of their engines echoed like a drumbeat of invasion. Elias stood on the cliff's edge, soaked in rain, staring at the incoming fleet. He could count at least 6 ships, each bearing the Syndicate crest. They weren't here for inspection this time. They were here to take. Behind him, the great glass hall glowed with defensive lights. Lady Seraph was there, her hands pressed to the control console, her silver skin flickering with stress. Energy shields rose around the estate like translucent domes. They're early, Elias said, stepping in. The council moved faster than I thought, Seraph replied. They want the human archive before anyone else knows it exists. The cube, her husband's secret creation, sat between them on the table. Its pulse matched the rhythm of the storm outside. Elias leaned forward. We can run. She looked up sharply. Run? There's nowhere to go. The moment we leave these cliffs, they'll fire. Then we fight, he said simply. She stared at him, really stared. You're human. You can't even wield our weapons. He smiled faintly. Doesn't mean I can't learn. He grabbed one of the alien rifles from the armory. The grip stung against his palm, reacting to non-Volari skin. The weapon buzzed and dimmed, rejecting him. Told you, Seraph murmured. But Elias only grinned wider. Then I'll improvise. He disappeared into the maintenance hall. When he returned, he had rigged together an ugly creation, half plasma conduit, half mining cutter. A human weapon, born of scraps. It won't last, she said. Neither will they, he replied. Before she could argue, the first explosion shook the fortress. A section of the outer wall collapsed, fire bursting into the night. The Drac had begun their assault. Seraph activated the shield grid manually. Holograms of defense towers flickered to life along the cliffside. Her voice was cold and clear now, the voice of the noble widow who had once commanded armies. Focus the east defenses. Don't let them breach the lower docks. Elias took position near the outer balcony. The rain whipped across his face, the air burning with plasma smoke. For a moment, fear crept up his spine. Then he remembered his own words. Humans don't break. We adapt. He waited for the first landing skimmer to appear, and when it did, he fired. The improvised weapon screamed, unleashing a burst of molten energy that tore through the first Drac drone. The explosion painted the sky orange. That's one, he muttered. Down below, more ships descended, their beams tearing through the shields. Seraph appeared beside him, cloak soaked, eyes glowing with fury. They'll breach soon. Then we make them regret it. Together, they moved like one, alien precision and human recklessness fused into something new. He fired from the balcony while she reprogrammed drones mid-air, turning them against their own fleet. The entire cliffside became a storm of fire and light. But the Drac were relentless. A heavy blast struck the observatory dome, shattering the glass. The wind howled through, dragging papers, flowers, fragments of life. Seraph fell, her arm cut by a shard. Elias dropped the weapon and rushed to her. You're hurt. It's nothing, she hissed, but her voice shook. He tore a strip from his shirt, wrapped her wound tight, and looked into her eyes. If we die tonight, at least we die standing. Her gaze softened. That's what he used to say. The words hung between them. Lightning illuminated her face. Not as a noble, not as an alien, but as someone human in her grief. Suddenly, the cube on the table began to hum louder, a high-pitched resonance that cut through the chaos. Elias turned. What's it doing? Seraph's eyes widened. It's reacting to you. The cube rose from the table, light spilling from its edges. Symbols flared across its surface, both human and Valari scripts merging, rewriting themselves. A deep voice echoed from within, calm and ancient. Hybrid synchronization achieved. Elias stepped back, stunned. What the hell? My husband built it to learn, Seraph whispered. And it just chose you. Outside, the Drac assault paused, sensors overwhelmed by the sudden energy surge. The cube projected a barrier across the fortress, pure white light expanding like dawn. Elias felt it in his bones. Warmth, power, and something else, memory. He saw flashes of earth, of forests, oceans, laughter. The cube wasn't just data. It was a bridge. Seraph looked at him, tears glimmering. He believed humans were the missing piece, she said softly. And now, you've proven him right. Elias clenched his fist, staring at the fleet above. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving. He was fighting back. The alarms screamed through the halls of House Vera. Walls trembled, fire roared in the distance, and the sea below glowed with burning wreckage. Elias dragged Seraph through the collapsing corridor, the cube floating beside them like a living star. This way, she shouted over the noise. Sparks rained from the ceiling as they ran deeper, past ruined halls, shattered glass, and fallen statues. The air was thick with smoke and static. Every breath felt like breathing lightning. They reached the central chamber, a vast, spiraling descent carved into the cliff's heart. At its center lay a glowing core, the pulse engine. Its energy pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and powerful. Elias stared down at it. If that thing goes off, everything dies. Seraph nodded. That's what it was built for. He turned to her. Your husband made this. He made it as a warning, she said. In case the council ever tried to erase free will again. He never meant for it to be used. Then we won't, Elias said firmly. There's always another way. But before she could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed through the chamber. Drac soldiers, dozens of them, descending through the upper rings. Their armor glowed red in the dim light. Elias grabbed his half-melted weapon and stepped in front of her. Get behind me. Seraph touched his shoulder. You can't fight them all. Watch me. He opened fire. The blasts tore through the first wave. Sparks danced off the walls as drones shrieked and fell. Seraph joined him, channeling energy from her hands. Arcs of blue lightning leaping between her fingers. Together, they fought like a storm given form. But for every soldier they dropped, two more replaced them. One bolt hit Elias's side. Searing pain ripped through him. He fell to one knee. Seraph cried out, dragging him back behind a barrier. "You're bleeding." "I've had worse," he said through gritted teeth. The cube hovered closer. Its glow intensified, wrapping them in a halo of light. Then it spoke, not with the cold mechanical tone from before, but with warmth. Almost human. "You cannot win by strength. You must win by choice." Elias looked up, panting. "Choice. Your kind's greatest power," the cube said. "The ability to change what was meant to be." Seraph's eyes widened. "It's evolving." The cube floated between them, projecting visions, countless timelines, each one showing destruction, loss, and extinction. In every path, humanity fell. Until one. In that single glowing thread, Elias stood defiant, holding the cube high, not as a weapon, but as a bridge between two races. "It's showing us hope," Seraph whispered. But the soldiers closed in. Plasma fire rained down. Elias grabbed the cube. "Then show me how." It responded instantly. Light surged through his veins, through every fiber of his being. His thoughts merged with its network, seeing through sensors across the battlefield. He felt the Drac ships above. Their engines. Their minds. Their fear. "Elias," Seraph called, her voice trembling. "What are you doing?" He turned to her, eyes glowing brighter than the storm outside. "Finishing what your husband started." He stepped forward, raising the cube. Energy pulsed outward, not destructive, but transformative. Every Drac weapon froze midair. Their armor flickered. Their systems crashed. One by one, the soldiers stopped fighting. Confused. Disarmed. Listening. "They're connected," Seraph whispered. "You linked their systems." "No," Elias said quietly. "I linked their hearts." He wasn't forcing them to submit. He was showing them what the cube had shown him. The memories of Earth, of love, of loss, of children laughing under real sunlight. One Drac soldier dropped his weapon. Then another. Within moments, the chamber fell silent. Seraph stared, disbelief in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "Humans are stubborn. We don't stop until something changes." But then the pulse engine beneath them began to rumble. The cube's power had awakened it completely. Alarms wailed. Energy readings spiked off the charts. "It's going critical," Seraph shouted. "Can you stop it?" "Not alone." Elias grabbed her hand and placed the cube between them. Then not alone. Light enveloped them both. Two beings from different worlds, one purpose. Their thoughts merged with the cube's consciousness. Time slowed. The storm outside froze mid-motion. "This is what he meant," Seraph whispered. "A bridge between species." "Then let's build it," Elias said. They directed their combined will into the pulse engine, not to destroy, but to rewrite. The energy changed tone, its violent hum softening into a deep, steady rhythm. The cube absorbed the overload, its glow flickering between blue and white. Finally, the storm broke. The energy surge subsided. The fortress stood, scarred, but still standing. Elias collapsed to the floor, barely conscious. Seraph caught him, cradling, his head in her lap. His breathing was shallow. "You stopped it," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Told you we adapt." The cube hovered nearby, dim but still alive. Its final words echoed softly through the chamber. One bridge built. Many more to come. Seraph looked out through the shattered dome. The sky was clearing, sunlight breaking through the storm clouds for the first time in years. And in her arms, the last human on Volari, broken, bleeding, and victorious, whispered the words that would echo across galaxies. "We don't kneel. Not to gods. Not to empires." The storm was gone. What remained was silence. Deep, fragile, almost sacred. The fortress stood in ruins, its walls cracked, its towers half fallen, but still breathing with light. The sea below had calmed to glass. Seraph knelt beside Elias on the shattered floor of the core chamber. His chest rose and fell weakly, every breath a struggle. The cube floated near them, dim now, its once blinding light reduced to a soft flicker, like a dying candle refusing to go out. "Elias," she whispered, brushing dust from his face. "Still here," he murmured, his lips barely moving. She smiled through tears. "You're impossible." He smirked faintly. "That's kind of our thing." Above them, the last of the Drac fleet drifted, engines silent. Some ships were broken. Others just stopped. The soldiers who had once invaded now stood on the cliffs, staring up at the sunrise, dazed, unarmed, changed. They had seen what Elias saw. They had felt what it meant to be human. Seraph looked to the cube. Can you heal him? The cube's voice was faint, fading. Energy depleted. Connection unstable. But he is not alone. The words made her chest tighten. She touched Elias's hand, their fingers intertwining. Human warmth against alien skin. For a moment, it felt like the entire universe had narrowed to that single contact. You saved them, she said softly. You saved all of us. Not yet, he whispered. They'll come again. They always do. Then they'll find more like you. He smiled. There aren't many like me. No, she said. There's only one. The cube pulsed once more, its final spark gathering strength. Human, pattern preserved. Directive continues. It rose slowly, drifting toward the open dome. Seraph tried to reach for it, but Elias stopped her weakly. Let it go. The cube ascended through the broken ceiling, rising into the dawn light. As it climbed higher, its glow spread across the sky, scattering into thousands of smaller lights, like stars being born in daylight. Each fragment shot outward, vanishing beyond the horizon. What is it doing? Seraph whispered. Spreading, Elias said. Carrying the story. Of us. Of what we can be. He coughed, his strength fading. Seraph pulled him closer, refusing to let go. Stay with me. If I don't, he said, his voice soft. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let them forget who we were. She pressed her forehead to his, her tears glowing faint blue in the sunlight. Never. For a moment, he looked peaceful, as if all the storms had finally left him. Then his hand went still. The light in the chamber dimmed. Only the sound of the waves remained. Seraph sat in silence, the sea wind brushing her hair. The human who had defied the impossible, the slave who became legend, was gone. But his story was already moving beyond the stars. Days later, the Drac Council broadcast a message across the sector. They called it the Accord of Vera. For the first time in centuries, slavery was outlawed. The phrase, free will is sacred, was etched into every law. And at the edge of Valari space, a monument was built, a single figure carved in stone, standing tall against the wind. A human, holding a cube of light. At its base were words written in both languages. Here stood Elias Ward, the man who taught us that courage is not bound by flesh, nor by world, nor by name. Years passed. The garden in the ruined fortress bloomed again. Seraph tended it every morning, just as he once did. The roses, earth roses, had taken root in alien soil. One night, as she sat beside the glowing petals, a faint shimmer appeared in the air. A projection, weak and static, but unmistakable, Elias's voice, recorded within the cube. If you're hearing this, it said, then it worked. You made it. Maybe we both did. Keep building, Seraph. Keep reaching. Don't stop being human. The projection faded, leaving her smiling through her tears. Above her, the two sons of Valari rose together, the dawn of a new age. And somewhere, light years away, fragments of the cube continued to travel across the cosmos, carrying a message that would one day reach every corner of the galaxy. We are humanity. We adapt. We endure. We rise. The screen fades to black. The sea roars one last time. And the legend of Elias Ward, the slave who saved the stars, begins its eternal journey.